Sitting in a cold government office with nothing but $52 to my name, I watched the clerk stare at her computer monitor until all the color drained from her face. She looked up at me. Her eyes filled with a sudden, unexplainable terror as she whispered that according to federal records, the person sitting in front of her had actually passed away over 3 decades ago. My chest tightened as a wave of complete disbelief washed over me, forcing me to realize that the fragile foundation of my entire existence was about to crumble into dust right before my eyes. Premier tried to tell her there had to be a mistake because I had used that exact Social Security number to pay taxes and build a life ever since. I walked out of my childhood home. The middle-aged woman behind the desk did not say a word, but her hands shook violently as she reached for the office telephone to alert her supervisor while keeping her eyes fixed on me. I was 32 years old, completely broke after losing my job at the local manufacturing plant. And suddenly a computer screen was telling me that I did not even exist. The heavy silence in that room made me think of my former stepfather, Robert Vance, a cold man who had treated me like an unwanted stranger before casting me out the very morning I turned 18. Robert had married my mother, Diane, a few years after my biological father passed away in a terrible highway accident, and he always made sure I knew that I was nothing more than an expensive burden to him. While his own daughter, Chloe, received everything she ever wanted, I was left with cheap hand-me-downs and a cruel, icy silence at the dinner table. When my Ethan arrived, I found my bags already packed by the front door and Robert standing there with a look of pure satisfaction as he told me his responsibility was officially over. My mother just stood in the background, refusing to look at me or say a single word of goodbye, while my little sister Chloe watched from the upstairs window with tears streaming down her face. For the next 15 years, I worked exhausting shifts in factories and warehouses, taking immense pride in the fact that I never asked anyone for a single penny. That fierce independence kept me going until the freight unexpectedly shut down, leaving me with a severe shoulder injury and mountain of medical bills, and absolutely no choice but to swallow my pride and ask the state for temporary assistance. Now, the clerk was looking at me with a terrifying mixture of horror and pity, as if she were staring at a ghost or the survivor of a horrific crime scene. She quietly asked me to stay exactly where I was because her department manager was on his way to handle the situation. A tall supervisor named Arthur Jenkins arrived a moment later, his professional composure completely shattering the moment he compared my face to the red warning text flashing across his computer screen. Arthur ordered the clerk to lock down my file immediately and commanded that no one else be contacted until he made a highly confidential phone call to the federal authorities. He looked back at me with immense gravity and warned me to prepare myself because every single thing I believed about my past was completely false. As I sat frozen in that plastic chair, Arthur explained that the Social Security number one possessed actually belonged to a 3-year-old toddler who had perished in a devastating trucking accident many years ago. The details did not match my own memories of losing my father when I was 6, and the terrifying inconsistency made my head spin as I tried to separate truth from lies. Suddenly, my phone buzzed with an incoming text from an unknown number, and my heart stopped as I read a message from an FBI agent. The message told me to stay exactly where I was because my biological mother had been desperately searching for her missing child for 32 years and was already boarding a flight to meet me. Arthur sat down across from me and gently explained that the patterns in my fractured childhood memories strongly suggested that I had been abducted as a toddler and raised under a completely fabricated identity. The pieces of my painful past finally fell into place, explaining why Robert hated me and why my mother could never look me in the eye. The supervisor then revealed that the federal government already had Diane in custody out west, where she had been living under an assumed name ever since Robert divorced her and reported the truth to the police. Robert had apparently discovered the kidnapping decades ago when I was a teenager, but he agreed to keep Diane secrets on the single condition that I would be permanently discarded the moment I became a legal adult. They had both sacrificed my life to protect their own comfort, leaving me to wander the world completely alone. The anger burning inside my chest was quickly replaced by a profound sense of wonder as I realized that the lonely boy who was thrown away like garbage actually had a real family who never stopped loving him. Standing up from that chair, I looked at my calloused hands and understood that my true journey was just beginning, far away from the lies of the people who stole my childhood. I was finally going to discover my real name, embrace the parents who had prayed for my return, and build a future rooted in the truth